Hello and welcome everyone to the show. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today's episode is a little different than what we have been dealing with in the past. It's the first conversation around addiction and abuse, and I hope it's a good one for a lot of you. Most of us can relate to many of the things going on in today's coaching that we did with Mandy. And I hope that you'll listen to the whole thing and not only put yourself in her shoes, but to think about who you are in relationship to the situation and who else you know, and hopefully to bring some compassion to the surface for everyone in your life, especially for yourself. If you are getting today's episode and listening to it on the day that it releases, today is Thursday, September 5th, and tonight is the Mind, Body, Soul Method of Manifestation webinar. It is free. There will be a recording, but you get bonuses when you come on live. Go to jjflazanes.com/manifesting to sign up. I'm not sure how long I will let people keep signing up to share the recording, but it's worth trying. So come on over to jjflazanes.com/manifesting if you're ready to really look at what works and what doesn't work and why things haven't been working for you in your life. And with that, I just wanted to give you a bit of a energetic warning. We are going to get into today's coaching session. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Welcome to the show, Mandy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Are you in South Africa, Mandy?
No, South Australia.
So it's nice that you're going to represent Australia because I look at my numbers and you guys in Australia listen to the show. So one day I'd love to be able to come down to Australia and do an event or something, but I need enough people to be interested. So I'm glad to finally have someone to represent Australia.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful down here. You should come down here one time. You'd totally love it. It's lovely.
I know I would. So obviously you are a listener to the show.
I am, yes.
Which show do you listen to?
All of your shows that you bring out, all of your podcasts. I'm a big fan of yours.
So women, men, and relationships, spirit, purpose,
and
energy, the whole lot. Okay. All right.
whole lot.
I'm just checking. I made the mistake once on a strategy call with someone who didn't listen to the show. I started talking about all kinds of woo-woo things, and I'm sure I scared her off. Anyway, but I know that you won't be scared off if you're a listener of my show. So Mandy, you had sent in your information about what you wanted to be coached on, and we're going to need to convert kilo for me to pounds, although I see that, there's a difference in the numbers, but I don't know what that equates to when we look at weight. But I see that you have a couple goals, and what I have here is lose weight, find a good partner, and to start your own business. So why don't you give us a little bit of a story as to where you are right now, what got you to want to do this coaching, and what do you want to focus on first?
Right. So I've hit the sort of middle age, I guess. And I haven't put on a lot of weight, but it's very hard to move it when you get to that certain level. Even though I don't eat a lot, I still exercise, but there's 4 or 5 kilos that I just can't get rid of no matter what I do. So I would like to look at the exercise part of it. Relationship, well, I was married for 20 years and then I got into a really bad relationship. And unfortunately, I've been stuck in a very unhealthy relationship and haven't been able to get out of it. So I guess out of all of it, it would be that part that I would really like to explore more with you. I know you have a great way of getting down to the causes of things. So I think that would probably be my main target of this life coaching today.
Okay. And in terms of the business, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, look, I work in 3 jobs at the moment. So for other businesses. Many years ago, 20 something years ago, I had my own business and it was truly what I wanted to do. Like I felt like I am my own person and, to get up at, and do a 9 till 5 job, and it's just so not me. But because of my financial situation and the way that my life has actually gone in the last 10 years, I've had no choice but to do that. So I'd really love to look at how I can find my passion and purpose, what sort of business ideas with my skills that I could actually look at doing. So that's where I'm with that as well.
Well, you wrote it on your intake form. And the reason why I'm asking is
Mm,
because many times, and I've experienced this myself, many times, if we're not living our purpose, if we're not feeling passionate about what we do in the world, we don't feel on purpose, we don't feel like we're making a difference for other people, we don't feel like our voice is being heard, we're not free to sort of just expand the way that we want to, we tend to put more pressure on our relationships to give us that. And that's why I wanted to know where you are with work, because many times people who are unhappy at work bring that unhappiness at home. And then they
mm,
expect that the relationship is going to make up for what the job isn't doing. And in both situations, your creativity is your life force. So if you're not finding an outlet for your creativity, for your voice, for your expression, the two can, knock up against each other basically
mm.
and hinder the other. And so when someone is happy, at least on purpose in what they're doing in life, and we spend a lot of time working. And
We
if we're
do.
spending 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day at a job we hate, then we're completely depleted on one level. So we have nothing to even bring to a relationship. So
Mm,
we're at an energetic level where our partner can't, like, you're either expecting your partner to give you what you're not getting, which isn't their job, and then you're being a vampire, an energy vampire to them potentially. And I'm not saying this is you, right? We're not
mm,
too far into the session yet that I know that about you, but I think it's a important point to make for people listening, because I've experienced this firsthand. When someone's
yeah.
unhappy at work, they're more unhappy at home. And when they're feeling alive and on purpose and have a creative outlet, then they're more patient, they're more available, they're more present, and they're not looking for the relationship to make up for every other aspect of life. So, does that hit home at all for you?
Um, yes and no. I think no matter how happy I would be, even in my work career, I don't think it would change a great deal because the relationship that I have is very, very unhealthy. He has many addictions, and I think because of that, it impacts me. I have tried and seen a couple of therapists that haven't really helped me a great deal. So I guess, you get to a point where it becomes like a big struggle with things because it's so far from what true Mandy is, I should say. I'm not really living my life anymore. It's more, I feel like a bit of a slave to him, if that makes sense. So I work and then I'm just in this unhealthy relationship after work. So I don't get much joy in my life in other areas.
Okay, so the burning question on the table, of course, is, why are you still with him?
That is something that I can't seem to find out why.
Okay, and when you went to these therapists, was it by
Yeah.
yourself or with him?
By myself.
Okay, and how long has this been going on?
6 years.
So 6 years ago, you knew this was unhealthy, but you're still there.
No, no, it didn't start off like that. It started off, in the romantic, you know, loving way, and then slowly, very slowly, it started I started getting name calling and put downs and um, controlling ways, and then, I started to become aware that he was an alcoholic, and he does some drugs, not heavy drugs, and he's a porn addict as well. Um, and I that's so far from my scope. Um, so it's been very, very difficult to try and deal with, and we've had a lot of problems over it because obviously he's got his own baggage, and he's obviously very broken in ways. And I thought maybe I could fix him, the common woman thing, but as probably the last 12 months, I'm seeing more and more that I can't because it's not me, it's his problem, and that's been the hard part. And because of the unhealthy relationship, I have lost all of my self-esteem. And I just, in a way, how it was described to me was that he has brainwashed me to a level that, like, I'm in an occult, and that's why I find it very difficult to get out of the relationship.
So I see you're a Scorpio.
Yes, I am.
I don't know anything else about your chart. I don't know your moon and how you deal with emotion, but Scorpios in general are they're a water sign, so very depth of feeling, but protective usually, and usually wait and watch and assess and see whether or not someone's going to hurt you. Basically, you're trying to plan to not be hurt, so you're trying to gain trust and trying to give somebody your trust. But when you do, obviously very loving. Scorpios are about sex a lot, very sensual, very sexual. There's other aspects of Scorpio too, but knowing that you kind of like maybe have assessed him before getting into relationship with him. Is this somebody, you said you had a 20-year marriage. Is this someone you're married to, or is this after that marriage?
No, I had a very healthy marriage for 20 years, and I left my husband because we just grew apart. We're still friends today, so it's very amicable. And we have one son. I have a child to him. So this is a relationship that I had when I left the marriage.
Let me guess. Is this person who you're with now, it was probably very passionate in the beginning.
Yes.
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 It was probably making you feel alive, something that you lost in your marriage.
Correct.
Maybe you never even had in your marriage, but something in this relationship. Okay. So while I don't like giving the power away to other people for someone to tell you that you've been brainwashed, because what that does is set you up to be a victim. And the uncomfortable truth about this is that you're an addict too.
Yeah.
Now, but we're all addicts, right? I'm not singling you out to say you are like you're the only addict and I'm fine. We all have addictions.
Mm-hmm.
So when we focus on the other person, and trust me, I chewed this so hard. It was real hard to swallow for myself, because those of us that are rescuers who want to help, who want to fix, who think we know better, who think we are better to some degree, not
Yep.
mean like a better person, but because we follow the straight and narrow, because we don't do drugs, illegal or otherwise, we don't have any hard addictions. There's this disrespect versus compassion that happens for someone who's going through something like that. And it took me having to look that in the face and say, all right, now what? And when I went to Al-Anon, have you been to Al-Anon?
No, I haven't.
So Al-Anon is a free organization which supports friends and family and loved ones of alcoholics. And whether it be alcoholism or another type of addiction, and I think there might be other organizations, but generally I think Al-Anon is probably the biggest, because AA is probably the biggest. It's probably been around the longest. There are other, again, codependent, and there's all kinds of organizations, again, that support for free people who are considered either addicts, codependent. And when I went to Al-Anon, the first thing that I really got out of it, and I sort of, for those of you that are listening to the show for a while, you've probably heard me say, I'm not a big fan of some of these programs long-term, like AA, for instance. While looking at something and saying, I'm an addict, I'm fine with, I have an addiction. It's a heart addiction, but it's not the substance's fault that you're an addict. Okay. It's at the end of the day, it's really what we are trying to avoid feeling ourselves that force us into something convenient that then either becomes chemically addicted or just comfortable or socially acceptable, whether it be food or whatever. And I mean, Netflix binging is an addiction. And while we all can do it, and we all should do it to a certain extent at some times, right? But it's in moderation, it's within balance. If someone's laying on the couch for, a month watching Netflix, we have a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
This is not imbalance. But to take a break from your life, okay, not a big deal. Unless there is something like life is falling apart around you. And instead of, and again, I understand we have to kind of prepare ourselves to deal with things. And maybe you need to numb out for a little bit just to kind of get ready for that. But again, if we never do it and we're just always in getting ready mode, but we're really never ready and we really never plan to be, again, out of balance. So my question for you is, because the addiction that was shown to me through Al-Anon, everyone listen up, because I've been told I need to talk about this more. Like this is sort of a sacred covenant that I have, and I haven't even gone into it. It's about codependence. But your addiction is most likely control to a certain degree. And I'm not, it doesn't even mean like, what is it? I'm going to ask you, what is it that you're trying to avoid? What is it that you're not wanting to face? What feeling, what idea, what belief, what situation? Because when we direct, I'm like, let me just finish this thought real quick because I want to make sure everyone understands. What I learned in Al-Anon was my addiction. My addiction was trying to control others, was trying to get them to not do something or to, right? And so what ends up happening is my addiction is that person or those people or their issue. I am avoiding my own self by redirecting my problem. I'm redirecting my energy to that person. So what is it that you think you're avoiding?
I think I have a real problem with being alone. So I think by being in the relationship, it's an avoidance of like I'm not stepping out to be actually alone. That scares me, and by being alone, I get like anxiety that comes with it. And so I guess it's the anxiety being alone part that I would say, and also I think I try and control his behaviour to a level where it's not healthy either. So yes, I do agree with you regarding the control part.
Well, control is one of the biggest addictions that many people have. And whether it come in the form of workaholism or OCD, or people just don't want to let go. They, anxiety and some having those feelings about like having something in place, or even dieting. Some people that have emotional eating like to diet because it's a way to control. Oh my gosh, fitness people. I've just really got like clear about why I don't like the fitness industry. It's a bunch of control freaks who have to, and I'm not saying everybody, so everyone who's listening, don't take it personally. Generally speaking, I think the fitness industry and the diet industry makes you think you're going to be restrictive. And sometimes it is, but it's coming from the place of, because you can't handle just being in flow. You have to create all these rules, and it has to be like, rah, rah. And it's a turn off, right? Nobody, like, people are like, my God, like, calm down. Like, I think it's a healthy thing when you allow yourself to ebb and flow and you keep things in check. But when you have such like strong control on every side and the box is super tight that you're living in all aspects, we're designed to rebel against that. We are freedom seekers. We want to feel free.
Yeah.
So I just want you to put that on for a second, because someone who told you that he's brainwashed you, you have needs and you have wounds that, have you ever done any of the Imago work that I've talked about on the show?
I've done a little bit of it. Yeah.
Do you know any of your core wounds?
I do. One of it is like my childhood. That's a big one from my father. And I think that's maybe that's the reason why I'm in this relationship, because he reminds me a lot of my father, and some of the behavior is very much like when I was growing up. My dad was he was a violent man. And he used to do things and scare us and all as children when we were growing up. So and now I sort of have this relationship that, in a way, when he yells, I feel very scared, like I go back to that child again. And I think maybe that's part of this, is part of it is with maybe the relationship that I have with my father.
Without having sheets in front of me that you have filled out, do you know how you react when you don't get what you want from your father?
I have not thought about that before, to be honest. How did I react? Very submissive, and I would not speak. I'd go within myself.
So on the creating your Imago exercise in Imago therapy, it's a lot of going back about some of these core wounds that, and they're not necessarily called, I mean, they are called core wounds in the program, but you're looking at how did I react when I didn't get some of these things that I needed from my parents? And when you start filling it out, I saw a pattern. And when I become aware of a pattern I have that I wasn't aware of before, for me, it's a pretty instant, like, oh my gosh, awareness. I stopped doing those things immediately. So it's a practice that, you can get the workbook and go through it yourself. But the reason why I wanted to ask, how did you react, is because part of that is going to be wrapped up in you creating new neural pathways. Did you listen to the Harville Hendrix show we did on Your Relationship Explained?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. So maybe listen to that again, because
Mm-hmm.
what we talk about is creating new neural pathways by, the partners that we choose. At first, we think that they're going to give us what we need and what we want, but actually they're incapable. Our greatest need is also their greatest inability.
Yeah.
And so that's why working together, we can transform this. But I'm going to say, I think you need to work on this separately. This is not something you're going to bring to your partner because you have said it's dysfunctional, it's unhealthy. And I would like you to have more compassion for him, because even though he's doing things that might be dangerous, which you may need to learn how to have boundaries, and part of not speaking up and becoming submissive, it would be good practice for you to, without necessarily blaming him or shaming him, saying, I have a need for security and safety. And when you get drunk or when you have this behavior, I feel unsafe. And because I feel unsafe, I don't know if I'm in danger. So because of that, because of my need for safety, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. Okay. There's a consequence. There needs to be a consequence to the behavior that
Mm-hmm.
you provide, that you say me, right? It's not saying I need you to change so I feel better. You're just saying, look, I have a need for safety. I don't feel safe in this environment, especially, when these things happen. So because of that, I'm going to need to, and then you make a list of things. And it's not, I need you to, it's I'm going to, whether I'm going to move out, I need you to leave, I'm going to go stay with a friend. You figure out
Yeah.
what the different options that you have are. And I would create, more than one, just so that you feel comfortable that you have many options. And then you're going to practice speaking that and following through with that, because the submissive thing is creates the victim in you, and you feel powerless. And this whole thing just triggers you back to however old you were with your father. And so there's probably a little bit of guilt. There's a lot of fear wrapped up
Mm.
in you taking action. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to break through some of those patterns by doing the thing that's the most uncomfortable. And it's doing the opposite of how you reacted then. Does that make sense?
It does. But the problem is, if I spoke up even in the way that you put it, um, he would become very nasty, very verbally abusive. And then what he does is he makes me stay in a room basically, and for 1 or 2 days, refuses to speak to me, looks at me with utter disgust, like I'm the most disgusting, human being. So by even myself, if I said that and I said I was going to go and stay with someone, he would say to me, don't come back, because he always thinks I'm having an affair, or I'm doing something wrong, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And that would blow it right out. So the only way I can keep things at a calm level is by being submissive,
So you have another option.
and that's to leave.
Yes.
Yes,
Why aren't you doing that?
I I want to leave. I do. I think the more I have been thinking about it lately, is it's fear. I'm scared of the reaction. I don't know how far it'll go in hurting me if I do leave.
Okay. So you're afraid of your safety, like you think he'd be abusive physically?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, there are several action items you could take. One would be to file a restraining order, and you could do
I've
that ahead of time before anything ever happens. Would that make him more upset? Of course. But right now,
Yes.
we're not trying, you can't walk on eggshells. You're putting his reactions to things above your own life, basically, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I understand why, because you feel like you're in danger. So we have to strategize. How can you literally get, you've heard stories, I'm sure. I have a story of a couple that I know back in my hometown, and her sister, I think her sister, because this person's sister was married to an attorney and had 2 kids. And I believe he was verbally and physically abusive to her. And I think one day she literally left with the kids. I've been here 20 years. I'm going to say this is 30 or 35, maybe even, no, it's probably 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And he is still looking for her. She,
Wow.
they don't, no one knows where she is. I mean, now her, because he has pulled her sister and the husband into court many times. And because to keep her kids safe, and I don't know if it's until they're 18 or whatever, or maybe they're just gone forever. I don't know,
Mm.
but they left. Now, I'm not saying do that. That's pretty extreme, but she was afraid for her life and probably her children's life. It was really bad. And that is the precaution she took. She probably got, changed names. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of it was probably illegal, but she's probably in some other country living somewhere off the grid. And she has
Mm.
been for 30 or 35 years.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Now, I'm not saying you need to go to that extreme, but I think that you probably have support closer to home that you're not utilizing. And I know there are support groups. I don't, again, I would think that if you were to leave, like I think, if you could try to have a rational conversation. And again, as long as you're not blaming and you never say the word you might
Mm.
be able to get away with it. But it also could be, is he happy? Is he happy with you?
I don't think he'd be happy with anyone.
But if you asked him, are you happy and do you want to continue this relationship? Would he say yes?
Yes, he would say yes because I'm submissive. He gets what he wants from me. He's just got to raise his voice.
All right.
And I was never like that. Like in my whole 20 years of my relationship, I was assertive, strong. We had an equal relationship. There was never any conflict. And when there was, we were able to sit down and talk about it. So this has just come from left field, being in this sort of situation and what I've become. I don't like what I've become. I don't like what I've become.
How long has it been going on in this bad space?
In the really bad space, I would say probably 4 years.
Okay. So the longer you stay, the more it's embedded that this is okay. And
That's what I'm scared about.
well, but you've already done it. Okay.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
already okay. And while I definitely want your safety to be your number one priority, I'd like you to think about, and it's not going to happen in this next 30 minutes,
No.
but I want you to think about who could help you. Who could you orchestrate leaving and not being found for a little while? Who could help protect you? What would you feel comfortable doing? And because when we deal with violent people, yeah, it can be scary. I had an ex-best friend who was an MMA fighter who had already killed someone.
Mm.
At least he said he did. He could have been lying for all I know, but 20 years ago, that's what he said he did. And it was out of self-defense, but it didn't really bother me. I understood the situation, and I had nothing to do with it. I didn't, all that kind of stuff. Like the fact that he, because it happens sometimes, people, when you're living in environments that are super violent or oppressive, or you're dealing with drug addicts or drug dealers or any of that kind of gambling stuff, it's like very dangerous.
Yeah.
So, and this was not, and he wasn't living that kind of life when I knew him. He was in a different life with a different name. Actually, he changed his name. Right. So, but later after we kind of broke up in a not very nice way,
Mm-hmm.
broke up meaning friends, I actually for a second wondered if I should change the locks on my apartment. And I thought,
Okay.
because he could do something dangerous. Now I didn't, mostly because he had a girlfriend then who I just felt like she probably wouldn't let him go off the deep end.
Right.
So, but I understand the fear in the moment of, this didn't end well. And he could come after me. In fact, I had a boyfriend in New York who was gay. Why was he my boyfriend?
Yeah.
Well, because I didn't know he was gay, and then when I figured out he was gay, and then I told him he was gay, he didn't like that very much, and called me very angry. And I don't even know if he's out now. This is probably 25 years ago.
Right.
He was just in total denial. But he was so upset. He was so violent that I also wondered if he was going to come beating my door down because I accused him of being gay. Well, he is gay, but again, whether he's out or not was his issue, and
Yeah.
nothing ever came of it. But again, we're crossing lines here where sometimes it is scary to not know what's going to happen. But so while I don't want you to focus on that those bad things could happen, I want you to plan. I want you to plan for it, and then I want you to do something about it.
And that's what there is support groups in Australia as well for that. And it is about planning, and it is about a safe alternative to leaving, finding a safe spot and feeling protected and safe. But I guess I've got to get to that space of being able to do it. And when you're a self-esteem, how do you build your self-esteem when it's been knocked down so far that you don't have one anymore?
Well, first, we're going to start off by acknowledging that you're a mother. And I don't know how close you are to your child, but if something was to happen to you and you weren't around, would you do it for your child?
Absolutely.
So we can borrow that protective impulse from from having a child if you can't muster it for yourself. And there's the deeper work here for you, my darling.
Mm.
Is that, yes, what is it that you don't like about yourself that you feel somehow you deserve this? You don't deserve this. And but you are creating it. I'm not going to, I'm going to hug you, but I'm going to hit you a little bit because
Yeah.
you're co-creating here because you're allowing it to happen. And the more longer you allow it to happen, the more it gets embedded. It's okay. So I want you to acknowledge you've created this. It's not just him, but at the same time, this is to bring you into sort of the come to Jesus moment of, is my life important to me or not? Now, you haven't said anything about depression you don't have anything checked off here about any other issues of I think you have fears and you're beating yourself up for not having enough chutzpah, so to speak, to overcome those fears. So there's still hope, and there's not hopelessness necessarily that you totally deserve this, that you're not worth anything. I'm not picking that up from you. What do you have?
Mm.
What are your thoughts about that?
Um, no, I do know that, I am worthwhile, and I do know that I'm a very good person. But I think I feel depressed, but I feel depressed because of the situation. I don't think it's a clinical depression. I think it's I'm depressed because I'm feeling so stuck, and I can't seem to venture out from this place. And I think that stuck feeling is the feeling, that it's very hard to overcome.
Well, it's hard to overcome when you're not giving yourself ways to overcome it.
Exactly.
Your depression is repression. You are feeling hope, like powerless, because you have decided that it's so scary that you're not going to do anything.
Correct. Yeah, because of the fear.
Okay, so you're not alone, and whether you go seek out a support group of abused women or wives, or I
Mhm.
don't have any experience with any of that. I know they exist, but I
Yeah.
haven't been to one, and I don't know anyone necessarily that I can talk to or has had one. But you could research it and go find one. I know they exist, and and in those groups, I'm sure they have resources. I'm sure they have a ton of resources and ideas about how to safely sort of get out of your space.
Mm.
And, at some point, maybe if you were to sneak out and leave
Yep.
and be unreachable for a little while. And I would recommend, if you're going to do that, which I do recommend you do that, but that's because sounds like your safety is in question, that you
Mhm.
write a really extensive long letter or possibly a video or something uh, explaining why you did it and how you're feeling, and have it full of compassion for him, and have it be, again, I statements about the things that you need and that you don't feel safe, and that I feel like my life is in jeopardy sometimes, and because I feel so unsafe and it's not okay for this to be happening any longer, I had to do something about it. I hope you can understand that I don't, or whatever, right? You could write a letter so that way, at least, and have a copy of it. Always have a copy, like have a copy on a computer,
Yep.
just so that way, in case something should happen to it, he burns it, he rips it, whatever. You have this letter as proof for whatever potential legal reason, but also just to really, that's all you can do. All you can do is express where you are and what your needs are. Try
Mm.
not to blame. Try to have compassion, and that is all you can do. And I think that if you can get there, I think
Yep.
you might be surprised that it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. But I also don't want you to, at this point, I don't want to suggest that you don't take precautions to protect yourself and your child, that you figure out, and it might take a little bit of planning, but you figure out a way, and then take all the precautions you need to, legal or otherwise, to protect yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and that's a really good starting point. And maybe by writing a letter too, and seeing what I'm writing and putting down, it might also help me as well in closure.
Now, before this happens, though, before if you're going to plan to leave or sneak out, I would encourage you to start taking your power back now in subtle, small ways. So, for instance, maybe you could ask, you could give a consequence to a behavior that is, you're going to walk out of the room, or you're going to say, you know what, can we talk about this in a different way? Or I would like to, would it be okay if we, and again, asking questions, engaging, ask for someone to engage in the conversation with you in a different way. Would it be okay if we did this? Or would it be okay? I'm feeling a little attacked right now, or you're not really in the space. I don't feel really safe right now. Can we wait to talk about this tomorrow or in the morning when you're not on drugs? Or,
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Or if it starts to become abusive, you can give them the warning. Look, I don't like where this is going. I don't feel safe. And if you don't back off, I'm going to walk out, or I'm going to leave, or I'm going to whatever. And then just like a child, you have to follow through with the consequences. So if you can find small ways now to start giving consequences and shifting, I mean, miracles can happen from that, where all of a sudden when you respect yourself, he could respect you more.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's so true. When you do respect, people that respect themselves, you do respect them too. Even like in the work industry and stuff, you do respect them. But people that don't respect themselves, then you do. Not that I ever am disrespectful, but you see people not respecting them in the workplace.
Right. Well, that's what the whole Fit to Love is about. It's really about that you're the beacon of energy that's putting out the blueprint for others to treat you. So if you don't treat yourself with respect, why do we think anyone else will? So
exactly.
So we have to start with, and I would say on a vibrational level, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be concerned. I want to cover that I'm concerned about your safety, and I want you to take that into consideration. However, I also want you on the flip side to activate love as much as you possibly can. Love for yourself first, but love and compassion for him too, because if he's doing this many drugs, he is hurting and has so much pain that you probably, I'm not saying it's worse than yours, but it is, he can't handle it, obviously, right? That's why he's doing this. He can't handle feeling any of it. He can't even for a second think about it, because he's got to numb out so hard in order for him not to feel it, for him to function. So I just, as much as, that's what the whole nonviolent communication is about. It's, when you learn how to identify your needs, it's also really important. And it was really designed to really see through the other person. So when they're angry, when they're yelling at you, when they're mean to you, to really move past our own triggers, to be able to say, you sound very angry. Would that be accurate? And you're angry because your need for support, your need for acknowledgement, your need for whatever, like when you focus on the other person's pain and what it is they need, which most of the time has nothing to do with you, but when we can take it off of ourselves and reflect it back on them, and really in the heart of the matter, just look at what's going on for them. Then when they feel seen, when they feel loved, when they feel connected and heard and focused on, that in itself is half the time what people are searching for.
Yeah, but what about if you have someone that's actually just truly mean and likes to be mean because they get off on being mean to other people?
So I don't actually believe, there may be a small portion of the population who are very chemically imbalanced, but I actually don't believe that's the majority. So the danger in assuming that, again, makes you the victim. And the danger in assuming that gives you no tools. So we've just judged him as being an evil person, and now there's nothing to do about it. And I think if you can leave the awareness that he is potentially dangerous and potentially off, and still come at it with hearing. If someone's mean to you, here's where I think the power struggle and the codependence happens for you.
Yeah.
He's mean to you because he knows it affects you, and he feels important because of how you react. So he's getting his need for feeling seen and feeling worthy in some way, in some dysfunctional, odd way, right? By you shrinking and by you listening. So if you don't play that game anymore, if you are immune to it, it won't work any longer. Now, I know that's where someone could then try other tactics and then try, it's like a child who, they do one thing, and then when you kind of ignore it, then they try something else. Right? They're like, okay, if that didn't work, I'm going to try. There's no different here. We're just big babies. They're like, we're all like, we're big infants, all of us. And we do what works. Women don't mean to be emotionally manipulative, but they are. Most women are emotionally manipulative because it works.
Because it works, yeah.
Right? But when you bring awareness, and if men would learn how to not be manipulated, then it wouldn't work anymore. So men can't blame women for being emotionally manipulated because they let it happen. But they think,
That's right.
women, right? So it's equal, 50-50 right now. So I want you to focus on, again, the things that you can do for you, what that means, and take really small steps. Using the law of attraction in this situation, and I've been here, is to, again, I'm not trying to Pollyanna over the safety issue. I want you to really spend some time making a plan. I want you to have I want you to have a strategy. I want you to have things in place where you're going to feel safe, that you can implement, soon if you need to, if things are to get bad. And I just want you to have the plan in place and then put it aside. And then the energy you're going to focus on is number one, you're going to find small ways for you to stand up for yourself in respectful ways, respect of him and of you, even if he's ugly and mean and cruel. I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to open your heart. I want you to connect to his pain, because when he wants to be mean and ugly, it's because he feels like shit. And your reaction to him on some, again, dysfunctional, sick level makes him feel important. So you can decide to diffuse that by acknowledging that I know we've had this dance, we have this power struggle that we do, and the power struggle looks like you're mean to me, and then I allow it to happen, and then you feel good about yourself, and then I do nothing. And again, each situation is going to require a different set of words, a different set of intentions, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm just generalizing here. Take out of it what you can, but to go say, okay, do you realize what's happening right now? Like right now, do you think you're being nice to me? Again, it's always better to ask a question than to make a statement, because your interpretation is not going to be his interpretation. So you could say, do you think you're being nice to me right now? I remember the guy that I dated who was gay. And one of the indicators was he was very critical of me. He would say things like, why are you wearing those pants? Are you going to wear those pants? And I was like I came out of the bedroom once and I started to cry, because I'd had it. And I said, do you know, like what? Now, again, in retrospect, I had my own wounds, and I ultimately didn't necessarily blame him, or I shouldn't have blamed him because I had my own wounds and insecurities. But here we are, I thought I handled it pretty well at 21, 24, whatever I was. I said, do you understand, like you're very critical of me. And I said, and I think when you're like in a relationship with someone, it's because you like them. And I don't really feel like you like me because you're kind of mean to me. And, right. And so that's what I said to him. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like he didn't know.
Oh.
He didn't get it. He was a Sag. And again, he was gay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Gay. So all of his anger energy of repression, of fear, of anger spilled out on me and everybody else because he wasn't willing to deal with it. And again, I had to figure this out over time, but he would be very mean. So I asked him, do you understand that you're being very judgmental and it's very mean and not supportive? So again, you could say something like, do you think that you're being nice to me right now? Or why are we in this relationship? Like, why are we together? Do you love me? Do you respect me? Do you think I'm a good person? Do you think you're being nice to me right now? And if you do, I would disagree. And I'm not receiving that niceness. In fact, I'm feeling the opposite of that. So, again, there's lots of ways to spin this, but asking questions and understanding, coming from love, keeping your heart open. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, no, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Baby steps, basically.
Baby steps on the communication, but it really is about you owning your own power to be able to have this conversation and not get triggered. I would definitely recommend finding a support group for abused women. I would definitely recommend going to Al-Anon ASAP. It's free.
Yeah.
And usually there are lots of different groups that have different styles of the way they do meetings. I think I had gone to like 4 different kinds of meetings, and one in particular I liked better than the others. So I went to that one more often.
Okay.
But again, it's a good support group. There's some good lessons to be learned. The biggest one is loving detachment. And in this situation, I want you to be more compassionate and detached, or compassionate but detached, but also compassion for yourself, and really understanding why am I not willing to love myself enough to leave? And if it's just the fear, okay, all right, I get that. But I don't think it's just the fear, because you've allowed this to happen. You've allowed this to get to this stage. The early signs when he was being mean to you or not nice to you and he was disrespecting you and you said nothing, those
Yeah.
were the times where they were indicators that this isn't going in a good direction. The momentum has picked up in the negative, and I now know you probably feel again out of control, like it's too dangerous. But why didn't, in the beginning when you started to notice this,
Mm.
why didn't you stick up for yourself?
I did stick up for myself in the beginning. I
And
did stick up for myself. Oh, it made it 10 times worse. He was very, very nasty, and would call me every name, under the sun. He would just scream, have a screaming fit, and then just hang up on the phone. Or, he would just scream in my face and then walk out. And so, and then he would never come back. So he'd always make me come back to try and sort it out, the problem. So at the start, it was volatile because I would stand up for myself. Now that I don't, it's backed off more.
But at what point was it okay to stay in this situation though? Right. So I understand
Yeah.
you stood up for yourself. I don't know how you stood up for yourself. A lot of times we stand up for ourselves in ways that trigger the other person even more, because we're
Mm,
yelling at them and blaming them.
true.
My guess is you didn't stand up for yourself in a way that said, I'm taking a stand for my own safety. And while I'm compassionate to your situation and I understand what you're going through and it must be really hard for you, this situation has become unsafe for me and therefore I'm going to leave. Did you say that?
No.
Right. Most likely you said, you do this and you do that, or you're always doing this, or I feel this way
Yeah.
because you act like that. Okay. So when we come at a relationship like that, of course, anybody, I mean, you don't have to be, you can be evolved and still the word you can be extremely triggering. And my guess is
Mm.
he's got deep mother issues. So,
Yes, he does.
right. So he has huge mother issues and wasn't acknowledged, probably blamed for her issues, probably blamed him or disowned him or whatever. So there's definitely huge mother issues there. And of course you have father issues, which is why this is going on with him, that you can again work on separately. But let's just get you out of this relationship. The biggest form of self-love that you're going to have is that you're going to plan to leave, and then you're going to leave, and that you're going to do it in a way that protects you as best you can. You're going to
Yeah.
get support. You're going to go to Al-Anon. You're going to go meet some abused women, and you're going to find out what they know and where you can go. You're going to inform your ex-husband and your child and your parents and your friends and your coworkers when it's time. But you're not going to disclose the location of where you're going necessarily, because you don't want him to find out through somebody else. So you're going to plan this and you're going to take your time planning it properly. Simultaneously, however, I want you to tap into his pain, and I want you to be compassionate for him and for you.
Mm.
I want you to do a list every day, every night. I want you to write a list, and you can write and burn if you don't want him to see it.
Yeah.
You can write it and say, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking forward to. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that on the show that I did
Oh,
it,
yes.
that I
Yeah.
did it, right? And I said, this is what I want. I want someone that's going to hold my hand, someone that wants to spend time with me, someone that wants to grow with me, and I would write this list every night, and I would get
Yeah.
excited about what I was creating in the future, knowing that and believing 100% I was going to get it.
Yep. Yep. And that's what I have been actually doing just lately, just in the last few weeks. I have actually been doing that to put it out there, the life that I do want, and visualizing what it's going to be like without him, how happy I'm going to feel, how safe I feel. So I have been doing all of that, and I am sort of feeling more hopeful in that way by doing that, by putting it out there.
Good. Now the second list is going to be a harder list. So
Oh,
maybe do this one first. The second list is going to be what you appreciate about him.
okay.
And the reason
That's really hard.
I know, but the reason why, but your vibration about him, your expectation of pain, your expectation of a fight, your expectation of abuse, your expectation of fear aligns with his, which is why it brings it out more. I need you to align with the best of him. It
There's
doesn't.
not much good though. There's really not much good there.
Okay. Well, okay. But so if it's 3 points or 4 points or 5 points, it could be as easy as today he wasn't abusive. Today okay, it could be, and that one I definitely think you should write and burn. But every night I want you to go through a list of the things you appreciate about him. And I'm not talking top level, like he's a generous person. He's so like, I'm talking about in the moment, like that day he he put the toilet seat down. He bought some groceries. I don't know. He didn't come home drunk. I don't know. Look, but but I want you to write that list first.
Okay.
Write that list first. I want you to get into a different frequency with his soul.
Okay. All right. No, I'll do that. And even though it will be a very short list.
Okay. But as you practice it, I want it to become longer. I want you to be able to see something. Again, we're tuning into a different frequency. And even the worst people, again, they're acting out of their own pain. So if you can be compassionate about his pain, then you can see where he's trying, or where he is trying to numb because he can't handle it, or because he can't face it, or he's such, people who are really, really, really mean and bad, like nasty, or most of the time they're the most insecure people who feel unworthy to the nth degree. And we want to focus on how mean they are and make them bad, because we're not seeing their deep pain. And again, I'm not trying to get you to, I don't want you to stay. No. And I don't want you to, I want you to make this plan, and I want you to get the hell out as soon as possible. But I want you to do it in a vibration and a frequency with compassion for him, because that sets you up to thrive. If you come from defensiveness and fear, you will only activate more of that. But if you can at least get into love, and again, highest vibration wins. If you can emanate love and acceptance and compassion for him, this all may turn around in a way that seems like a miracle. But you're not going to get there when you're on a frequency that's attracting negativity and fear.
No, that is true. Yeah. I will definitely be doing those lists.
Okay. Every day. Every day. I want you to align with the best of him.
Yes, I will definitely do that.
Okay. And then there may be other options. I don't know if he still has, caring, supportive family who's around. Maybe you talk to them and ask them for some help in the situation. Maybe there's an intervention of some kind, but that's not super like, I'm going to control you and put you in a box, right? Like, again, just, you're going to uncover and create the perfect strategy for you. But in the meantime, I want you to activate what you want in the future. And I want you to get into alignment with the best of him right now. And then, of course, start putting in little consequences for, and try, please don't say the word you. Anytime you're going to do a consequence, do not say it's because you did this. It's because you feel unsafe. It's because you need safety. It's because, you own that need and that feeling and that strategy, and try the hardest you can to say it without ever using the word you.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Definitely.
Okay, so this is a big topic that obviously it bleeds into maybe possibly overeating out of fear and shame. Obviously the businesses, right? Like you said about your confidence. So I agree that this was the place to start. And
yeah, I think this is the place to start, because unless this gets, right, then the other areas of my life, I'm going to really struggle getting them right. Because if I have a business and I'm passionate, but I have an unhealthy relationship, then the business is never going to work either.
Right, because you won't be allowed to grow. Because if you're letting someone else control you to that degree, then they'll have their energy in everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why this needs to be sorted, and the other areas I'm hoping will follow afterwards.
Now, there's still more that can be done on your end to prepare for any and all of this, like love languages, looking at his astrology, looking at your astrology, figuring out the right words to say to him in a way he'll hear you is huge. So of course, what I always do at the end of these sessions is send you sort of information if you wanted to work any further with me on this. But I think
Yep.
that for you, especially if you're feeling unsafe, the next step for you would be to look at his astrology and his moon sign and to really figure out what his wounds are without him. You can do it without him, and to figure out, a way in which to speak to him, what his love language is. Maybe by doing some of that, it will ease it a little bit. And then to figure out a way to communicate that he'll hear. And that's the problem, is that sometimes we think that others are going to hear what we say the way that we mean it, and they're interpreting on a different level. So really getting a little bit more specific about him and you in terms of
Yep.
communication, love language, astrology, would empower you to feel confident in how you're going to deliver this information.
Okay. Yeah. No, that would be really good. If you can send that through, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff and I think when you start to shift and feel better about yourself, I've experienced this as well. When you sort of get to that next level energetically, you don't even have to do anything. People around you shift because you've shifted. And hopefully it'll be in a good way, that when you kind of infuse more love into self-respect for yourself, that you don't have to say anything. It's nonverbal, it's energetic, it's vibrational. So that hopefully will emanate and possibly make some more peace. But I don't want you to get caught in that the peace means there's hope or that you're going to stay.
No, that's right. No, I fully understand that. It doesn't mean that at all. I still have to leave. So, because we're not right for each other and this is not the right relationship for me.
Not sure when this is going to air, but obviously when it comes out, I will let you know so that you can re-listen to it yourself and hear everything I've said, everything you've said. And hopefully by that point, because it will be at least a couple of weeks, hopefully by that point, there'll be some progress on your end of feeling better, feeling more empowered, feeling stronger, feeling more love for yourself and him at the same time, protecting yourself.
Yep. Yep. No, that sounds fantastic. Thanks so much for doing this today as well.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could help you. I hoped it helped. Did it help?
It has helped. Yeah, no, really, it's given me hope, and I think just having the plan in place and doing the lists and being consistent with it, I think that's going to shift a lot. So no, definitely, absolutely.
Okay.
So thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Mandy. Well, I'm going to be in touch, and then hopefully we'll maybe have a success story of you later, because I'm sure at this point, everyone is like, oh my God, what's going to happen to her? So I've never kind of had something so, like dangerous, if you will, on the show. So if anyone's listening and you want to hear Mandy's follow-up story, let me know, because I'm sure you'll feel supported in that way, that we can update them later as to what's going on with you, because now we've engaged them and they care. And for those of you who also are listening, who are experiencing some of the same things she is, I hope that today has been helpful, and I hope you'll all seek out. Again, everyone really would benefit from going to Al-Anon. I don't care if you don't think you have anyone in your life. It's not about necessarily alcoholism. It's about addiction. And those of you that have control issues, it's about understanding that you are trying to control someone else because you're ignoring and denying yourself. So you're not want to sit in your own skin and with your own problems. You're too busy trying to control everybody else. So it's beneficial for everyone. It's free. It's everywhere in the world. It is. So find an Al-Anon near you. They haven't sponsored this. I'm getting no money. Don't stay there too long though. Go in, get what you need to get out, like maybe 6 months, 8 months, 4 months, a year. I don't know. I think it's, and if you're not, because if you're there a year and you haven't gotten it yet, it's not the right message for you. So
no, that's right.
Yeah. All right, Mandy, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and telling your story. I know, and I'm trust that there are other people out there living a very similar story, and you have shined a light of courage for them as well. So thank you.
No, thank you.